Welcome, Junior Takis. My name is Mrs. Ramla. This video is on the section Animal Tissues, and this video is on exam question 2 of the exam questions. Now, before you do the exam questions, make sure you watch my theory videos, print the worksheet, and have the memo with you at hand. Right, let's get down to question 2. Now, this is a very nice question, and you've learned many mammalian tissue. And it's very difficult sometimes to just learn all. Sometimes you might just guess, maybe I should learn this one. But this is a very nice question because it incorporates all the tissues. So let's answer the question. But before we answer, you can see this question's out of 16 marks, right? And it has from 2.1 to 2.5, right? Study the diagram below of the animal tissues found in different parts of the human body and answer the questions. Okay, no problem at all. Now, 2.1. 2.1 says provides labels for tissues A, D, and E. And it says be specific. So it means don't use words like just epithelium, muscle tissue, connective tissue. You have to be specific and name the specific tissues. So A, if you can see the label is pointing to the bone here. So, and then you can see there's your little cells there. So obviously what tissue is it that makes up this femur in your body? Bone tissue. D, again, this is pointing to your skin. And you can see in this diagram here that there's a lot of fibers. There's a thick fiber and a thin fiber, and there's a lot of spaces between the cells. Your clue already should be that that is areolar connective tissue. Areolar, like an arrow, there's spaces between the cells. So that is D. E, if you're not sure of, look, it's pointing to the muscle. And so we know that that's part of your biceps. So what muscle will that be? Of course, striated muscle tissue, right? And you can see bone tissue, areolar connective tissue, striated muscle tissue. Another name for striated muscle tissue is voluntary muscle tissue. I like to use the word striated because I remember the striations, but you're welcome to use whatever words you want, right? 2.2. What is the function of tissue B in the human body? Now, tissue B, this is tissue B. And if you look nicely, it's pointing to a nerve in the body. And we know the nerve is made up of nervous tissue. So they are asking you now, what's the function for 2 marks of nervous tissue? Now we know what nervous tissue does. We know that nervous tissue, so you got a mark for mentioning the tissue. And we know nervous tissue is there to pick up stimuli, send stimuli in your internal, which is inside your body, and your external environment, which is your environment outside. Also allows you to provide appropriate responses, right, in various organs, such as in the muscles or the glands. Very, very important. Now you see, if you didn't identify the tissue correctly, you got the function incorrect. So very nice questions. Right. Now let's go to question 2.3. Tabulate 2 structural difference between the 2 types of cells visible in F. Now, there's F. Now, that we can see, that's blood tissue. I can immediately see there's a red blood cell, and then the purple with the lobe nucleus, that's the white blood cell. So your 2, and they want structural difference, and they want you to tabulate for 5 marks, right? So you must have your heading. A table of differences between white blood cells and red blood cells. You must have your frame, as you can see here, your column headings, white blood cells, red blood cells. And for drawing your table, here your table had to have the headings and the rows and the frame. So that's what you got for 1 mark. Now, we all should know white blood cells have a nucleus, red blood cell has no nucleus. White blood cells are irregular shaped, whereas red blood cells are biconcave in shape. White blood cells contain no hemoglobin and red blood cells contain hemoglobin. So any 2 differences would have got you your marks. Now, only structural differences, nothing else. Only structural differences, right? Now, let's get down to question 2.4. What structural component does tissue A, C, D, and F have in common? So A, C, D, and F. Now, that's a muscle. That's connective tissue. So muscle is also connective tissue. That's cartilage, also connective tissue. And A is bone tissue, also connective tissue. So A, C, D, and F are all connective tissue. So what structural component do all connective tissue have in common? Now, you should have learned and put together by now that all connective tissue have a matrix, or the substance between the cells, which is known as the intercellular substance. Okay, right. Now, and then the last question that we're looking at is 2.5. Now, 2.5, how is tissue? E. Now, there's your tissue. We already did that. That's your muscle tissue. Striated muscle tissue. How is it structurally suited for its function? For 4 marks. Now, if you look at your memo, we know striated muscle tissue, all muscle tissue, is red. And the reason for that is a lot of blood vessels, a lot of mitochondria. Why a lot of blood vessels? In the blood is going to be a lot of oxygen and glucose, because those muscles are always contracting and relaxing. And to allow for the muscles to contract and relax, a very important process has to take place, cellular respiration. So that is why you have to have a lot of blood vessels and a lot of mitochondria. The mitochondria is there to provide that energy for cellular respiration, and obviously the blood actually supplies the oxygen and glucose for cellular respiration, so the muscles can contract and relax. All right, that was question 2. Thank you for joining me and watching this video on question 2 on the animal tissues. Join me and watch all my other videos as well.